Hi, I'm Laura Brown, and I have a daughter. Her name is Lauren. She's now 7 years old, and she has sensory dysfunction. And we discovered that she had sensory issues beginning when she was 3 years old. So basically, she's had this issue for 4 years. It's a major aversion to clothing. In particular, elastics are very difficult, synthetics, and she does not have a willingness to try different types of clothes. So she chooses one pair of pants or one pair of shorts, and she has now reduced her wardrobe to three tops. By the time I contacted you, the behaviors had escalated to a point that were really unbearable for our family. Um, she got to the point where the morning routine and just getting dressed, a very basic functional skill, would take upwards to 2 hours. And during that period of time, there would be cycles where she would tantrum for 5 to 10 minutes, which would involve screaming, ranting, yelling very mean phrases like, "I hate you, mommy. I don't want to be in this house. I can't stand you. You're making me do this." Yeah. And then she would get quiet and act like she was ready to start again. And then meanwhile, I would engage with her. I would try to use logic and explain the importance of getting dressed and how I could help her and what she needed to do and how this was important and this is her job. And that just didn't work.
Yeah.
So, and anywhere from 1 to 2 hours every single day, just getting dressed.
Yeah. And I remember in particular when you called, there was a really strong emotion that you felt. Can you remember what it felt like for you, particularly when you woke up in the morning?
I was just depressed.
Yeah.
It was a very, very difficult time because my body, even though my mind would try to remain positive, physiologically, my body was not hearing that language.
Yeah.
I was getting sick. I was extremely nervous. I hesitated. I was so apprehensive about even putting my feet on the ground because all I could do was anticipate the same nightmare that was recurring. And it felt like I couldn't escape it. And I think she could sense that very easily. So I just felt like we were in this downward spiral of despair and having to relive it every single day. And it was torturous. I felt like our home had no peace. There was no calm. And I started to feel really resentful and bitter and angry at her for choosing to be so upset about something that is so basic. But I knew fundamentally I love my child and I would do anything to help her.
Yeah.
But my efforts nothing I seemed to work with her.
Yeah. And I know that you had looked into some different resources. You tried a bunch of different modalities. And one in particular, when you called, you were asking me, how do I help her get dressed in the morning? And we were talking about the behavioral and relationship perspective. And I remember at the time, somebody had told you, you just have a difficult child. It will be 2 years till she can dress herself.
Yes.
Now, you and I have had, over the course of 6 months, we've had 8 coaching sessions. That's it, 8 coaching sessions. Do you remember what started changing and how soon?
Our first conversation was in December.
Mm-hmm.
It was around December 15th, I think. We had changed our plans at Christmas. We were going to go away at Christmas. We had to modify our plans because I could not anticipate her behavior. I didn't know what was going to happen. But I think one of the first things we started to do was to use the visual schedule. We worked on it together. We saw that there was a very specific sequence in the routine. And in addition to that, I gave her a little bit of more control with her sensory diet. I gave her some choices with that. So we modified that. So when I gave her a little bit more control, a change in positive reinforcement, and then a lot of positive, heartfelt appreciation, I would say within 2 weeks, I saw the first change in her.
Yeah.
in that it wasn't taking as long. And I can remember on New Year's Day, we were able to go tubing, and she had to layer. She had to put on all of her winter gear, which she hates, but she was able to do it. And she did it within 10 minutes in our car.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks before that, I could not even imagine us being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. I remember you feeling really surprised that you could see change and also nervous that it was going to revert back. And so we've worked really diligently on making sure that these changes stick. So what would you say is different now? Maybe you can share with people on average how long the morning routine takes and what it feels like with you guys now.
It's amazing because I've maintained behavior charts since December.
Mm-hmm.
She got to the point where she could dress within 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And like 3 weeks ago, she got to the point she was dressing in 5 to 10 minutes and able to have 40 to 45 minutes of play.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave her charge over her time. Because I've always asked her, what would you like to do instead of getting dressed for 2 hours? And she could always make a long list for me, but she could never get to that point.
Right.
Now she's at that point where she sees, wow, I have a lot of extra time and I can play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so from a parent perspective, how does it feel now to be able to allow her that to provide the structure, see her become more independent and giving you some of that space to either play with her or do something else? What's that like?
It's amazing. This morning she got dressed in 5 minutes and I got to see her engage with her sister and play happily. They had time to go outside. They had time to go downstairs and play. We still had time to prepare her book bag together, joyfully. So there's calm and there's more peace. And that's priceless.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Well, I so appreciate you sharing it. I know parents who are watching the video really, I'm sure, also appreciate your story. If you had advice for a parent with a challenging child, and they were wondering, is parent coaching right for me versus other modalities, what advice would you give them?
I found that for parent coaching, it's a wonderful piece for parents because she receives OT weekly. She does go to a psychologist, but I found that the parent coaching helps me as a parent. It helps me to have strategies. The scripts that you have provided have been so valuable. I mean, I had something concrete. And for me, that's like an emergency plan.
Yeah.
Places have emergency plans because, when we're in crisis, we revert to that fight or flight. And I was in fight or flight with her. Now I feel like I have very specific words and phrases so that whenever we revert back to a tough moment, I feel like I have the confidence and the ability to interact with her in a positive way while remaining calm. So this service is invaluable. And I would recommend that any parent who is seeking support and guidance and instruction for a child with a very intense brain like Lauren, I would say do it. It's definitely worth it. It has been my counseling because you have provided affirmation and validation of what I've attempted to do as a parent, while very kindly pointing me into another direction that's very positive, and it helps me to remain calm. I've re-engaged, so I feel like we have bought time. Yeah. And now that we have more time, we can have positive experiences together. And in that way, when she reflects on her childhood, she thinks about all the positive, fun things that she and mommy did together, instead of spending hour upon hour in this abyss of just misery. And I felt like that's the dark place we were in months ago. And so now I feel like we just have more time to re-engage and reconnect and make up for lost time.